can hear the angry comments now. Now, I'm sure there are some very special boys out there who are going to shriek about having the word feminism in the title at all, but hear me out. Contrary to what certain other people's beliefs may be, feminism is not about suppression of males or whatever screw loose nonsense got in people's heads during a certain event in 2013. Rather, it's a critical lens through which we can suppose a world free of toxic masculinity and patriarchal bullshit, generally for the betterment of people of every gender presentation. And completely arbitrarily, it seems, we're finding it in a Godzilla film from 2002. Huh. Consider my mind blown. Well, come along with me on this ride and find out. Or rant and rave like a madman in the comments, I guess, but I will be charging a $25 serve fee per 3 words over my limit of what I consider to be reasonable discourse. So, open up your wallets and let's go. Anyway, let's do a quick breakdown of this film. In the fiction of the film, the original Godzilla appeared in 1954, and the JSDF has been battling monsters ever since, primarily using maser cannons, which are those big, goofy satellite lightning guns that show up all over these flicks. Our main heroine, one Yashiro Akane, is a driver for one of these machines as part of the Anti-Megalosaurus Force, or AMF. Following an incident during an attack from a new Godzilla, she finds herself off of active combat duty while the government scrambles to find some sort of solution. Using the bones of the original Godzilla to create a biocomputer and the latest in technology that's basically magic, they create a Mechagodzilla codenamed Kiryu. No, not that Kiryu. No, not that one either. Ugh, anything for a hashtag, I tell ya. After some cajoling from Colonel Togashi, who believes in Akane's abilities, she joins up with the nascent Kiryu team. One of Kiryu's designers, Dr. Yuhara, and his daughter become mildly close with the rather reserved Akane over the course of the movie. After a disastrous first run as Kiryu's biocomputers go on a rampage, once it hears Godzilla's roar, Akane and her team have to race against time to get Mechagodzilla back online before the next attack. It's a fairly standard movie fare, right? But think about what I didn't add to the synopsis. The only thing that anyone gives her shit about is the accident at the beginning of the film. Colonel Togashi never treats her any lighter because of her gender, no one dotes on her, calls her stupid nicknames. Moreover, while she's part of the team, she's not one of the boys. She's not playing masculine or feminine. She's a fully developed character who happens to be female. Simple as, simple as. But there's more to it than that. The first prime minister that shows up at the beginning is a woman, one who goes for the throat and is perfectly happy to rumble on foreign policy. When she leaves office, it's not because she gets drummed out in shame, it's because her term is over. One of the scientists, the one who's responsible for Kiryu's energy resources, her beating heart, actually, and arguably why the machine wins the day at all, is also a woman, and an older one at that. See, it's things like this that matter when you're viewing things through a critical lens. You have to look for the omissions and where people are placed relative to each other in the society of your film to grasp what the film is going for. The cinematography agrees with me too, because even though Akane spends a bunch of time running around and doing military drills, the camera angles aren't lurid or leering, and even when she's wearing that flight suit, it's not some sort of weird skin-tight affair. It's the same one that the guys wear. There's no funky cuts or dips to speak of. It's not like Yumiko Shaku is some stranger to kind of pervy photos being taken of her, considering she was a gravure idol before she started making movies. I don't know, it's like they respect their lead actress and don't treat her like a piece of meat. The lack of a romantic angle, too, or rather the complete rebuffing of Dr. Yuhara's frankly painful attempts at flirting, if you call it that, is also kind of novel considering how frank and direct it is. Akane's got bigger lizards to fry. That kind of Woody Allen shit don't fly no more, bud. Probably shouldn't have flown back then either, but hey, what are you gonna do? Akane doesn't fall for anyone, doesn't seem interested in romance or having a family, and no one goes topsy-turvy trying to drag her out of her shell or whatever. Her teammates respect her, with the exception of the guy whose brother got killed by Godzilla because of the accident that she was a part of, and even then he comes around on her. Even when he's giving her the gears for her mistake, it's not because of her gender, but it's because he's questioning her skills as a pilot or a driver. Well, here's the thing. When you take gender out of the equation, then it's just a group of people having interpersonal conflict. Gender doesn't come into it, and you could replace anyone in the scene with people of any gender, and it could play out the same. You've removed the power structure from the equation, with the exception of the military hierarchy. Take or leave that, I suppose. But that's the point. This movie maybe isn't intentionally dismantling the gendered power structure that is still very prevalent in Japan, and even more prevalent in the intervening years since the flick came out. But there are three very visible and very prominent female characters, all of which have a meaningful impact on the plot and resolution of this story. These roles could have been filled by male actors, and the film would have been perfectly serviceable, if completely unremarkable. But it wasn't, and so it becomes something more than the sum of its parts. What makes this movie have feminist elements is that it came together in a way that doesn't rely on gender power structures in its story when there are literally bigger fish to fry. It's a non issue, both for the characters and for the film as a whole. Gender is a non issue as long as you can do the job. Well, you might be wondering to yourself, well, shit, why don't more movies do that sort of thing? Well, that's an excellent question. Why don't more movies do that? Strange, isn't it? Well, I can scarcely wait to see the comments section on this one, but if you haven't watched any of the Millennium Godzilla films and you have any love for the character at all, you are definitely missing out. The Millennium Godzilla flicks are really interesting, if a little bit on the experimental side, and while the compositing isn't always great and the CG kind of sucks, there are weird stylistic choices in a few of the others. They're all just solid kaiju flicks. But whatever the case may be, I hope I made you consider things from a different angle. The thing about applying lenses to your critique or otherwise viewing of a film is that you can make stronger or weaker efforts to do such a thing depending on how good the film is. You can read Aliens as a post-Vietnam era rebuttal. You can read it as, old world feminism versus new world feminism. You can read it as a lot of things, or you can just read it as a space movie, right? But the simple fact that you can do all of that speaks to its quality as a film and the skill of the actors and the filmmakers and the writers involved in it. If you struggle with applying one lens or another to it, well, you might have a film that is created specifically without those lenses in mind, or it might just not be a super great film. But that's the nice thing about film critique and the death of the author and all that stuff, is that you can kind of make up, for lack of a better term, bullshit. And as long as you can back it up with actual examples from the text or the film itself, well, you know what? Maybe you can make a salient point. And if it falls apart, well, maybe you just aren't going to get any luck trying to apply that criticism to that film. But that's a part of media literacy, and that's a part of how we as consumers of media should look at things from a much broader lens than just what's on the screen. Which, incidentally, is why you'll never see me make a episode entitled, Ending Explained on, Serial Experiments Lane or whatever. But maybe I should. That'd probably be pretty good clickbait. We'll see you next time, folks. That being said, this is Professor Otaku, the greatest American anime critic, signing off.